Bum bum. Thinking out loud.
Welcome back to Thinking Out Loud. We're Alma and Sophia, and in today's topic, we will delve into something that everyone experiences, but not everyone understands. It's sleep, and more importantly, psychological rest.
It's a great topic because people often assume rest and sleep are the same thing, but they're actually quite different.
So, when we talk about psychological rest, what does it mean?
Psychological rest is when your mind is no longer actively processing stress, solving problems, or staying in high alert. It's not just about being physically still. You can be lying in bed and still mentally active, worrying, planning, or replaying events. These are all examples of active psychological rest.
Exactly. Just like being in bed doesn't mean your brain is resting. True rest happens when mental activity decreases, especially the kind tied to stress or overthinking.
What's happening in the brain when we actually rest?
A key part is the balance between two systems, the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous systems. The sympathetic system is responsible for fight or flight responses, whilst the parasympathetic system supports rest and digest.
So, for good sleep, the body needs to shift into that calmer state, where heart rate slows, breathing becomes deeper, and the brain reduces alertness. Another important system is the default mode network, which becomes active when you're not focused on the outside world.
Yes, and the default mode network could act as both a good and a bad thing. It depends on the intention and purpose behind it. For instance, it could be restorative, which involves calm reflection, but if it turns into rumination, which is repetitive negative thinking, it could interfere with rest.
A lot of people sleep for hours and still wake up tired. You may ask, why does that happen? Well, there are a few reasons for this, but the main idea is that sleep quality matters more than quantity. This is due to the several factors. First, stress can carry into sleep. If your brain is highly active before bed, it doesn't fully settle. Second, fragmented sleep, which classifies as waking up during the night, can interrupt deeper stages.
Exactly, and also sleep affects emotional processing, especially during deep sleeping stages like REM sleep. Your brain works is working through emotions and memories. Just like the Ariana Grande song REM says, "Before you speak, don't move because I don't want to wake up." This shows how profound stages of sleep are necessary and that disruption from sleep is undesired.
So, sleep isn't just passive, but it's actually a busy process. It's as if your brain were doing important maintenance work.
It feels like nowadays life makes it harder to rest with school and social media. Would you agree?
Very much so. We're constantly stimulated, notifications, screens, deadlines. These keep the brain in a low level state of alertness.
So even when we think we're relaxing, we might not actually be resting, since the brain does not fully switch off from the alert mode.
So, after acknowledging our obstacles that can disrupt our sleeping quality and schedule, what can people actually do to improve their rest and sleep?
There are several practical strategies. First, you could ensure that about 30 to 60 minutes before bed, you do more passive activities and leave your phone, except if you're playing music. And also, an activity you could do instead is to reduce your mental load by writing down your thoughts or tasks before sleeping. Personally, I always make a checklist with all the tasks I'm planning to do the following day before going to bed. I find this is essential to prepare to go to sleep as it makes me feel calmer and I'm gonna know what's gonna happen the rest of the day.
Yes, those are really good strategies. Adding on to what you said, another thing that might be helpful could be using sensor clues, like dim lighting or calming sounds to signal rest. This helps communicate to your body that it's time for rest and relax. Moreover, techniques like conscious breathing or mindfulness activities can activate your parasympathetic system.
Exactly. It's all about preparing your brain for a rest, not just expecting it to happen. But can rest happen outside of sleep?
Absolutely. There are different types of rest during the day. Mental rest involves taking breaks from thinking and decision making. Emotional rest means expressing feelings instead of suppressing them. Sensory rest comes from reducing noise and screen time. And finally, creative rest can come from engaging with nature or art.
I understand now. Rest isn't just doing anything. No, I understand now. Rest isn't just doing nothing, it's changing how your brain is engaged.
Exactly. Now we will be talking about some common misconceptions about sleep. Since there are many wrong assumptions about sleep, one is the idea that being exhausted guarantees good sleep. It doesn't. Sometimes it even makes sleep worse.
Yes, and another misconception is that pushing through fatigue improves productivity. In reality, lack of rest reduces focus and emotional stability. Especially during exam season, knowing when to take a break and when to go rest is crucial for your mental health and for your productivity. Just because you study more and sacrifice some sleep hours, it doesn't mean that you're going to do any better than someone who allows themselves to take breaks and sleeps accordingly. It's all about how productive your study sessions are and trying to achieve a balance in between resting and studying with consistent efforts.
You're so right. Rest actually supports productivity. Even though you may feel pressured and as if you're running out of time, cramming all of your revision will only overwhelm you more. And sacrificing the much needed sleep hours will be detrimental to your well being and it might make you burnt out.
Yes, and although it's very easy to talk about how we approach revision and exam stress, it is much harder to put in practice. So my advice would be just be flexible and sit down and revise because the perfect moment to study won't come, and despite not always having the motivation to revise, it's important to persevere. Even if you don't do as much as you were planning to do, some revision is better than none. Imagine how much time is lost when you postpone studying for another half an hour because you lack motivation. All of these consistent efforts, even if they're small, they will amount to something eventually.
Exactly. And don't feel pressured to find the perfect balance either, because it doesn't exist. The best balance is what works for you best. As long as you're prioritizing both your well being and healthy habits alongside your revision, some examples of healthy habits that may motivate you include doing some exercise like running, going on a walk, or sport. Another example is making sure you still have time for your friends, family, and for your hobbies.
Creating a schedule could be really useful. I know that for me it works very well. You can include small goals you want to complete on the day, such as an academic goal, a personal goal, and a social goal. For instance, you might want to do a timed psychology past paper, go on a run, and meet up with your friends in the evening. However, use it to organize yourself, not to dictate your every move. You should keep in mind that some days you won't be able to complete everything that you planned in your schedule, and that's okay.
Yes, these study timetables serve for referencing purposes, and whilst you should try to put realistic and reasonable goals for yourself, you also should be open and flexible to move things around because there are always some factors that come up which you can't control.
Overall, we just wanted to emphasize how there is no one single best way to revise. It depends on what works for you. Whether that would be active recall like flashcards, the Feynman technique, doing past papers under time conditions, doing practice exam questions, or even making efficient notes and diagrams for visual aid. However, it is important to choose the study techniques you will use based on the subject you're doing. For example, for English and Spanish, I would revise differently than for psychology and biology.
Lastly, we wanted to touch up upon stress levels and how we manage them. As we previously talked about, stress can disrupt both your quality and quantity sleep. Therefore, we need to learn how to occupy yourself with tasks rather than preoccupy about them.
Yes, a big part of what happens in our body when we're stressed involves a hormone called cortisol. It is often called the stress hormone, and it's released by the body when we're under pressure.
And cortisol isn't entirely bad, it's normal. Regulated levels, it helps you wake up, stay alert, and respond to challenges. The problem actually comes when cortisol levels are either too low or too high for long periods of time.
Who would have thought? I was sure that being low cortisol meant being relaxed and having a positive connotation. I guess low cortisol can make you feel exhausted and unmotivated now that I come think of it.
Yes, and high cortisol levels can lead to difficult sleeping, anxiety, feeling jittery, and having trouble with concentrating.
This links to what we said earlier. Your body stays in the fight or flight response mode instead of switching into rest mode.
Basically, when cortisol is at high or low level, your body struggles to find balance, just like we do with balancing our revision and our social life.
However, much like balancing different aspects of our life, cortisol levels can be regulated with the help of a good sleeping schedule, a healthy routine, and consistent study habits that neither underestimate your capability and not either overexert you.
So, after unpacking all of this information about sleep and exam stress, what's one key takeaway from this instance?
I would say that sleep is not just about how long you rest, but how well your mind disengages. Without psychological rest, sleep alone isn't enough. Don't sacrifice your well being just to feel productive.
I agree, and also finding balance in how you live isn't about how much you revise or how you organize yourself, but the fact that you're making space for both your goals and mental health.
Thanks for listening to our podcast, Thinking Out Loud, and we hope you found this helpful and good luck on your exams.